Welcome back to Real Talk, Real Advice here with Nathan Najib. We've been speaking about the economy. We've been predicting for the last many years. When it comes to real estate, I've spoken about this thing in the past, the 5 variables that drive the real estate in New Zealand. You got to see where they are at, each and every one of them, to be able to predict. So the first one is average home price. That means increase of home prices from this year to next year, from last year to this year, from the year before to the last year. So what is the increase? What kind of increase are we having in the real estate prices and home prices? A healthy increase is 2 to 4%. And why this 2 to 4% is a healthy growth is because if the salary grows by 1 to 3% and the home price increased by 10%, well, you don't need to be a genius to figure out the affordability. It's just a matter of time for you won't be able to afford homes, right? The home prices outstrips the affordability. If that's that kind of increase you're having, like we've had when the pandemic came in, and I'll tell you why we had that kind of increase as well. The second one is number of annual home sales. So if I've got 1,000 homes coming to the market, let's say in an area, and I've got 1,000 of them selling just like this, now we're short on stock, right? So supply and demand. The next one is supply of inventory. So if you've got 1,000 houses coming to the market, or 1,000 sections coming to the market, and you got 1,500 buyers, which is number of annual, because buyers gonna buy properties, right? And you got 1,500 buyers, now you know the market's gonna be out of kilter. So the demand needs to match the supply, so the prices don't increase over 2 to 4%. And all those things needs to be kept in check by the council, by the government, and we as real estate agents or people that predict the future must watch that. The reason why a lot of economists are off, in my opinion, is because they don't look at every single variable. Like I said, all the variables is got to work in line for a healthy real estate market. The next one is mortgage rate fluctuation. So what the government or the Reserve Bank do is they increase the interest rate to slow the market down, they decrease it to make the market move, right? At the moment, the interest rate is almost 7%, it slows the market down, right? So when it's 7%, not only it slows the market down, people don't buy homes that much, but on the other hand, the cash rate, when the interest rate is high, the OCR is high as well. Meaning, if I've got money with me in the bank, I'd rather leave it in the bank and get 6% or 5.5% OCR rate is at the moment. I'll get a 5.5% interest on my money in the bank rather than putting it somewhere else that I might not get that 5.5%, right? So they increase the cash rate, which means increase the interest rate to slow the market down so people don't put money in the economy. Because how does the economy get faster or get slower? When there's more money put into the economy moves, right? When you start taking money off the table, the economy slows down. And I'm going to talk to you about this as well anyways. And the next thing is affordability, which is inflation and unemployment rate. So for inflation, meaning the increase, what's inflation? Inflation is what you buy a basket of grocery last year compared to a basket of grocery this year. How much it cost? Is it gone up by 2%? That's okay. It needs to be below 2% because once again, if the home price is going up at 10%, 12% a year, and you've got your interest rate is at 7%, and then the produce prices going up by 15%, then things become unaffordable, right? So that's the reason they keep inflation has to be under 2%. That's what they've been trying to do for the last 2 or 3 years. Now these guys here that's come in, the new government, they are actually putting things, because this thing, let's say this analogy of like, you know, this car going 100 miles an hour, right? Now whatever they're trying to do, they're trying to slow this car down, right? And it takes, and maybe some bumps that you got to put through in front of it to eventually slow this car down rather than this car crashing. Because if it goes 100 miles an hour, it's going to hit something, it's going to be real bad damage. The thing that they say, what goes up comes back down. Something goes, the faster it goes up, the harder it falls. All those sayings are actually absolutely true, with which I'm going to talk about the DTI, high interest rate, the first home grants, even they've put it in front of the car to slow it down, and hopefully in a healthy way before this car crashes, hits that wall and everybody gets injured, right? And then the next one is the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate needs to be under 5%. And if things have got out of hand, inflation is like a 7%. There was a bunch of quarter that was 7%. And the unemployment is when inflation is high. We've spoken about this thing called the Phillips curve, meaning that when inflation is high, why the inflation is high is because things are happening in the market. I'm going to talk about also as well as what causes inflation, right? Which I've spoken about in the past videos as well. When the inflation is high, unemployment is low, always, because the market is busy, things are happening, right? When they're trying to get inflation under control, what happens is unemployment goes high, because when people are not making money, what do? They lay people off. If the restaurant downstairs was making 100,000, now they're making 20,000 a month. What they have to do, the first thing, most expensive thing is for businesses, what? Employees. So they're gonna lay employees off so hence the unemployment rate. Like people have been laying off, I think it was, I'm not sure exactly if it was 2 degrees or telecom, they laid a bunch off, and it's happening right across everything. And obviously the government the new government, they're laying a bunch of civil workers off in government organization, right? So these are the 5 variables. I encourage you to watch our video, this video obviously, and go back and watch our past video that we spoke about the reason, the 5 variables and how they control. I hope I've explained this so you understand why the variables are so important. Let me come back to, as I said, inflation and unemployment rate, right? And I spoke about what causes inflation in the past, but let me just briefly just touch on this. What causes inflation? Why inflation goes high? So the reasons are, number 1, and if you go back 2 years ago, 3 years ago, since the pandemic, these things here, we knew inflation was going to get high because all these things were happening. Like, let me explain. Cost push inflation. Now what happens, oil prices increase, obviously, cost of running a business increases, so the money gets passed on to the consumers. That's in form of inflation. And obviously workers, because things are costing more now, right? Now workers are asking for a raise. Otherwise, if you don't give me a raise, there's 5, 10, 20 other restaurants that I can go work in. So they say, like, if you don't give me a raise, because there's so much demand, I can just go to a restaurant down the road and get $25 an hour if you don't give me that. So that's what happens in the market. And the land price increase, obviously, the rent increase, right? That's what you call cost push inflation. And then the next one is demand pull inflation. Now, what they do is, like, you know, what happened at demand pull inflation is and the prime example of that was because after the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, right? If you go back to the pandemic, they closed New Zealand for a long period of time. So when you do that, when you close shop for a long period of time and you open the floodgates, then there's so much demand out there. So demand pulls inflation. So if I've got a chair that I'm selling I've got $1,500 is how much I want for it, and I've got 500 people wanting this, well, I can ask $2,500, $3,500. If I've got a house that's was worth $800,000, exactly what happened to the market, right? I was selling these houses in Rolleston for like $730,000. All of a sudden, I had to buy it from Wellington, buy it from Crosser, buy it from Invercargill, buy it from everywhere. They were paying $1,015,000 for it. That was only a 4-bedroom, just a standard house, right? So demand pull inflation, they cut taxes and feed money to the economy. Like, you know, there was stimuluses, there was, like, you know, if you don't work, that's okay, well, you sit at home and we'll pay you, right? All those things, like putting oil into the fire. Too much demand, business owners increase prices to slow demand, because if I've got a bunch of chairs and I've got a whole lot of buyers, I can, number 1, I can put whatever price I want on it, increase the price because there's so much demand there, right? And then printing money. And we printed out, we gave away $92 billion or something. And so if you put that kind of money into the economy, what does it do to the economy? It makes it turn, right? So everybody becomes rich, right? The stimulus, free money, obviously, quantitative easing, low rate to afford bigger houses. So the interest rate, because they thought the market was going to die, so the interest rate was like almost at 0% almost, right? They were paying like, we were getting fixed mortgage at 2.19%. The banks were so easy to borrow money from, so everybody went and upgraded. So what happened? the inflation went straight through the roof. Now the Reserve Bank, the interest rate is a lever that they play with. Like when the market is not busy, I spoke about this in the past, but when the market is quiet, what they do, they drop the interest rate. Because when the money is cheap, people go and borrow money and buy stuff. They can borrow things on their credit card because the money is cheap, right? On the other hand, when the market is going out of hand or is too busy, they think the inflation is going to get out of kilter, they increase the interest rate. So, as I see it here, government raises or lower taxes, like Labour comes in and they raise taxes, right? And the National come in, they lower taxes, right? Regulation and deregulation. They try to do their best to keep the inflation at 2%, but you can't keep the inflation at 2% when these things are happening. So now when a car is running 100 miles an hour, before it crashes, you need to put some things in front of it to slow down, the car slow down, and hopefully you'll slow it down in a way that doesn't crash. Because if it crashes, then obviously that's what you call when the bottom comes out of the market, right? So the goal, thankfully, to National, I like to think that they know how to about finances, right? What they've been doing since they came in, obviously the interest rate was getting, they were playing this only one lever. That's what the Labour was playing with. Only one lever, the increasing interest rate, right? Okay, yes, that plays a bit of part of it, but if your car is going 100 miles an hour, like I said, that interest rate alone is not going to help slow it down. So what these guys did, number one, on December 13th, when people see the interest rate going to go out, they're going to drop the interest rate again, and we see there was no way that interest rate would drop. The goal was to slow the market down, right? So as soon as you drop the interest rate, the market is going to take back off, right? So I don't know why people thought they were going to drop the interest rate. We see it from the start, there was no way they're going to drop the interest rates, which they didn't, right? But what they did also is leave the interest rate where it was, as well as brought in more barriers to slow this car that was going 100 miles an hour. It was inevitable that it was going to crash, to slow it down. So what did they do? They told the Reserve Bank was on double mandate. A double mandate meaning that they had to keep the inflation under 2%, or they have to keep inflation under control, as well as the unemployment rate. So what they did, to get the inflation from 7% to get it lower, if you've got these two things that you're playing with, there's no way you can get an inflation under 2% and unemployment rate still under 5%. Like I said, when the inflation goes down, the unemployment rate goes high. This is what is called the Phillips curve. So they said to the Reserve Bank, Reserve Bank, you forget about the unemployment rate. All we want you to do is get inflation under 2%. Now when they do that, what's going to happen? The unemployment rate is going to get higher, right? They brought in a single mandate, meaning that Reserve Bank, your goal is now, forget about unemployment rate, as I said, your goal is to get inflation under 2%, all right? First one. The second one, they brought in obviously the OCR, they left it where it was, because if they dropped the interest rate, what was going to happen is a thing called the reverse market crash, meaning the rich, because the rich own real estate, right? So the rich would have got richer, because if the interest rate goes lower, the price of properties go up again, right? So the properties would have gone up again, and then it would have been unaffordable for middle class, and the poor would have got poorer, and the middle class would have shrunk and dropped down even further. That was the reason they left the interest rate where it was, obviously. And then they brought in budget cuts. So one of the things is like, the interest rate at a higher level to make sure people stop spending money. The second thing, the barrier or the obstacle they put in front of this car that was going 100 miles an hour is, let's stop us, the government. We should stop spending money, because if you stop spending money, the economy is still turning, right? Like billion plus rail track that they had planned to be built in Auckland, the ferry that was over $1 billion, whatever else they had, they could take off the economy, they did. So the budget cuts, and the budget cuts takes a bit of time. We did a video about that not too long ago, so you should go and watch that, and how long they usually take for the budget cut, for the things to get under control after they cut the budget and keep the interest rate where it's at. The next one is, just recently, remove of first home grants. People say that was horrible. Some people say like, why they did that. Once again, that's one of the other form of barriers to put in front of this car that was going out of hand. So to slow the market down, because the only sector that was like very busy still was the first home market. So they said, what do we do now to slow this market down, right? So okay, let's take the first home grant out. While it's busy for now, but it's going to get quieter slowly, right? So they took that off the table. So it's just a matter of time. The first home market will slow down as well. Meaning, first home buyers buy first home property. First home property owners go to second home property. Second home people that move on to third home property, right? Meaning right across luxury real estate. So it gets, if they don't slow down here, the whole market will carry on. So they said, okay, let's put a stop here. First home grant. The next one is the debt to income ratio. One of the things that we need to be mindful of is the income, how much of your income goes towards your mortgage. It's a household income. Is at the moment like 120, 125,000, I believe that's where it sits, household income. The home prices can be 6+ times the average home income, which it is now. I think it's 6.5 last time I checked, but it needs to come down to being affordable. It needs to be 2 to 3 times household income, right? That's the most it can go to. So at the moment, what they say is like, you can only borrow money, the debt to income ratio, if you're buying a home that is for yourself, is 6 times your gross income. So let's say you make 120,000, you've got a debt of 120,000, so you can borrow up to 600,000 to buy a property. And then when it comes to investment property, it's 7 times your gross income. If you had your income was 120,000, household income 120,000, 20,000 was your debt. You take that off, 7 times that, you can borrow 700,000 to buy you an investment property. And the reason they've done that is also to slow, once again, the market down. So you can only borrow an amount that you can afford to pay, number one. And number two, slow the market down so the prices come back. The prices have taken off in the last, I did some numbers the other day, and it was like 60% in the last, since 2020, since the pandemic, and it's come back already about 20, maybe 25%. It needs to come down by probably another 15, maybe 20% for it to be at an affordable level. At affordable level, if we go back to our 5 variables, between 2, maximum 4% for the homes to be affordable. At the moment, the home, people say that, all right? If you ask an average Kiwi, say like, the home prices are unaffordable. I can't afford to buy homes. So coming back to your first home grant taken off the table, for now it's painful, but give it some time. The price of property that you paid for it, you would have paid for it for 550, you would buy that house for 490. Because if nobody's buying, the prices have to come back, right? And that's the whole reason. I've seen this many times. Sorry, it was 3 to 4%. 3 to 4 times your household income, not 2 to 3 times your household income. So I've seen this many times in the past, that for homes to be at an affordable level, it needs to be at an affordable level, because if it's not an affordable level, the bottom will come off the market. So to be at an affordable level, you need the home values, average home value, I should say, needs to be 3 to 4 times the household income. Now, if it's either the prices have to come back or the salaries have to increase by 15-20%. You don't need to be genius to figure out what will happen, right? And also, just recently, the housing minister, Chris Bishop, he said that he wants the prices of homes to come eventually to 3 to 5 times household income. So he's saying exactly what I said many years ago, right? He says 3 to 5. I don't think it's going to be 3 to 5. I think it needs to be at affordable, it needs to be 3 to 4 times. So he's saying it's 3 to 5, but I think we're probably going to land somewhere between 3 to 4 times household income. Then we can come back to our normal real estate economy. And then when it comes back to normal real estate economy, it goes back to recalibrate and take slowly back off, like we had before the pandemic for 10-15 years in Christchurch in particular. That was a bloody good, healthy real estate market, and that's where we want to get it to. I hope that's been of help to you. I know there's plenty to talk about. You should watch this video over and over again, because I don't think you'll get it once. And then number 2, there's a bunch of other videos that we've done. We talk about the variable, we talk about the flips curve, we talk about why do they take the first home grant. We cover everything. Now, I hope that's been of help to you. All we're here to do is to add value to you, and I hope that's what we're doing. Thank you very much for your time. Till next time.